Hey, hey. Tobago updates.
Good morning and welcome back, guys. And as we wrap up this morning here, we're talking about come and see what the Lord has done at the Bethel Methodist Church in Charlottesville. Come and see what the Lord has done over 100 years, celebrating their anniversary this year. Guys, this morning, to have this conversation with me, I have Mrs. Erna Alleyne-Dick, who is the congregational steward and a member of the planning committee, as well as Mr. Anthony Moore, who's the music director, and he's also on the planning committee at the church. And we're talking about 100 years of worship, 100 years of God's blessing on his people, 100 years of what has been happening right here on the island of Tobago as the Methodist Church, Bethel Methodist Church in Charlottesville celebrates all that they have accomplished throughout the years. Thank you guys so much for coming on and sharing with us, sharing with the people of Tobago. We come and see what the Lord has done when we look back at everything that God has done over the 100 years. And even before that, there is always something to celebrate and something to be happy about and something to testify about. And I'm sure at this 100th year ceremony, we're going to hear a lot of testimonies about some of the things that we have seen done, where you guys started and where you are now, and how God continues to work his magic in your assembly. So tell us a bit about this 100-year celebration.
This church, in its present location, was commissioned in 1923. It actually started with the journey at the top of the hill, which is called Mount Stewart, where the first church was. And then because of challenges with the distance from the village, and also there was an early hurricane that made that area sort of the building not worthy to occupy. The building came down into the village, and just above its present location, where we had what you call a chapel school. So you had the chapel school at the top of the hill at Mount Stewart, and the chapel school down in the village. And those lands in the village were given to the Methodist Church by the Turpins. The building that was at the top of the hill was given, the land was given to the church by Mr. Tucker, who would have been would have owned the Speyside estate. And then this present building is 100 years old in its present location. And of course, the celebration surrounds all of that. And I know we have to move quickly, so I'll ask Sister Erna to indicate what we are doing in the celebrations.
Even before we get to Sister Erna, I want people to understand that even as we celebrate 100 years in existence of the church, we cannot forget the history that surrounds the area, the village, as well as the people. Yes. Because outside of just the religious context, a lot was happening during that time.
That's right.
So it was a totally different Tobago 100 years ago. And so the church, even as it celebrates 100 years in existence, or just in what it's doing, we have to think about the setting, the environment that existed in that time, the plantations, the type of mentality,
right.
A number of settlers that were here on the island, some of the colonial powers that still lingered around at that time. So give us some of the context as to what type of Tobago did we see during the initial stages of this church? What was Tobago like at that time?
So we're talking about a Tobago, and of course a Charlottesville that just was pulling itself together in the early time of colonialism, coming out of slavery. So most of these members were the children of slaves, actually, and they really toiled hard. As a matter of fact, these lands were owned by these colonial powers. In the case of Mr. Tucker, who was in charge of the Speyside estate, the land was given to the Charlottesville folk at the top of the hill, which was called Mount Stewart. And the name Mount Stewart really came from an English sea captain who came with his vessel, and he left the bell from his ship for the church. And that's why that school or chapel school was called Mount Stewart at the top of the hill. And then the Turpins, Guy Turpins, who owned the Charlottesville estate, they were generous enough to give the lands of their estate to the people. And of course, the people worked hard for these estate owners. Don't want to go into that too much.
Correct.
But very much so, these lands were given by the Turpins. And again, the children of these ex-slaves, if you want to say that, toiled hard, in the fields. In those days, you had not cocoa just yet, but sugar cane, and then you moved into cocoa. And of course, the villagers had their little holdings from these estate owners, and they put their pennies together and actually worked hard to build this present chapel that we are celebrating 100 years for. As a matter of fact, the structure was done in such a way where you had what you call a brick day, where families were given portions of the structure to be responsible for developing. So they had to bring stones, and most of those stones came from a place in Charlottesville called Waterhold, which is the back of Pirates Bay. So they had to bring those stones in boats over to the main harbor and then up Spring Street, where the church is, to lay the foundation for this building that we are so proud of today. And many families contributed from their very meager resources. The Carringtons, the Lewises, the Nicholsons, the Moores, and there are so many other names that you can call that made their personal contribution. As a matter of fact, in the construction of that whole church, you had the ministers, the Methodist ministers, who would have been in the island. The first minister actually serving the area actually resided in what you call the manse at Betsy's Hope. And then that structure had to be taken to Charlottesville by coastal steamer when the mission at Charlottesville needed deeper attention. And of course, at Betsy's Hope, there was a challenge with the ministers getting fever from like mosquito infestation and so on. So in even doing all of that and setting up that structure in Charlottesville and getting the church moving, the people of the community really worked hard in doing that. And I must put something in for some of these estate owners. One of the ministers in those early times, when there was actually no manse at Charlottesville, was accommodated at the Hermitage Estate Great House. Okay. And that minister was Reverend Moffat was his name. And he was the one who would have overseen the setting up of the manse and also also getting the church building moving. And all of this was only possible through the very hard work of definitely ex-slaves.
Right.
You know?
And so, Sister Erna, Mrs. Alleyne-Dick, right? So you guys are celebrating not only on one day, but you have a number of events that are happening, and there's events happening between May the 14th to the 17th. Tell us about some of those activities, and then there are the events that are happening from the 16th of July to the 28th.
Okay. On Sunday the 14th of May, which is Sunday coming, we have our anniversary service. That's a special service where we invited some of the past ministers and other churches in the village to come and share with us. We have our preacher, Reverend Marcus Torshaw. He was one of the ministers who worked there earlier, and he now resides in England. So he consented to be with us on that day, bringing the message. We also have the unveiling of a stone, 100 years. That's on Sunday. And then on Monday, we have a community project, which is some benches we will be putting down in front of the health center next to the sporting nets there. We also would have on that same day in the evening a leadership training session, and this will also be done by Reverend Marcus Torshaw.
Okay, and before you go any further, let us know who is invited to all of these events. Are they specific to members of the village, members of the Methodist faith, or the entire Tobago?
The entire Tobago. The chief secretary, the member of parliament, they are specially invited, and all the ministers who worked at in Charlottesville before, they were served invitation to come along.
Excellent. Tell us more.
Right. And on Tuesday, we have a lecture series on Methodism, right? And that will be at the library auditorium.
Okay, and that's right here in Scarborough.
No, in Charlottesville.
Oh,
Charlottesville.
Put me in my place, right? Charlottesville has its own library as well.
Yes, Charlottesville has its own library, right? So that will be done there.
Okay.
And on Wednesday, the 17th, it's Education Day. The school is connected to the church. They have a school in Charlottesville. So we would be having that Education Day. We will be having a school service, and then we will have interaction with the pupils and, tell them all that took place early and so on. A full day at the school. And then in the evening at 6 p.m., we have an open air service in the village down by the bandstand. We have that there. Our superintendent minister, Reverend Adolph Davis, would be the person to do that service for us. He would bring the word for us. Before that, on Friday the 12th, we will be having a prayer walkabout. So we go in the village and we talk with people, we pray for them and invite them to our session that day.
In addition to all of that, we have to salute our presbyter, Reverend Elton Watson, who is in charge of the Bethel congregation at Charlottesville. And of course, there are so many other names that can be mentioned. The Dylans and the James and the Dicks, and the Murrays, all these families, or ancestors, of course, of that time, they contributed greatly to the building of this chapel.
And so I also took note of the fact that you guys are going to be unveiling a plaque and a stone. Is that going to include the names of the contributors over time? All those names that you mentioned.
We can't put all those
names
we actually just want to put a commemorative stone that would be laid by the superintendent minister and the presbyter, Reverend Elton Watson.
Right. Because I know there's this place in Barbados that you go to in the middle of the square and you can see all those surnames from past slaves as well as contributors that built the city. And I think that is so interesting for historical purposes and for the next generation to come to see their name or the name of their family would have contributed to, such a momentous journey over time. So maybe that's something to think about.
Yes. And those activities, as Sister said there, would incorporate the community in a very significant way. For example, we want to mention the interdenominational choir festival, where we are taking the denominations within the village to come with music, and you are going to be doing a song of the Methodists that you use in your faith. And we are going to sort of explain how the song came about and some of the musical information that is needed to the Baptists and the Pentecostal and the Adventists and the Anglican. And your choir could be made up of people across the nation. It doesn't have to be just Charlottesville Anglican and Charlottesville Pentecostal. It could be, yes. And yes.
Right, that is done in July. So, and on the 17th of July, we have the health and essential services outreach, where we invite the essential services to come and have their day with us. And on Tuesday the 18th, Brother Maud explained this good to you, Men on the Move.
And that is very significant because we are looking at a society, even across Tobago, where we are having challenges with our men and young men and how we sort of take care of our children and how we deal with community issues. So on that day, the men are going to be engaged in board games, in card and chess and draft and dominoes. But in between those games, we are going to pause to have conversation with the men as to what can we do to improve our community. How can we interact with the younger men? How can we be good fathers in our homes? How can we guide our children? How can we involve our young people in development that is to develop the human resource in the community? And that would be the main focus on that day, Men on the Move. Yes.
Right.
All right, and then on the 27th of July, we will have a sports and family day, incorporating everyone to come out and have fun on that day. And Friday, the 28th, we have our anniversary dinner right at the school.
Okay, and is the anniversary dinner open to all? Or
Everyone.
okay, and is there a fee attached to that?
Yes, we do.
Okay, all right.
So you don't want to say the fee.
You don't want to say the fee? We can contact you to find out more information.
Yes,
$200,
yes,
of course.
yes.
All right, excellent, guys. Well, you heard it here. The Bethel Methodist Church of Charlottesville is celebrating 100 years with a number of activities. That's probably too much for us to remember, but if you want to get into contact with them and you want to find out more about these activities, how you can get involved, your family, your church, can get involved with them, you can contact them. You guys want to leave a contact number so that the public can reach out to you?
Yes, so we can have us reach at 777-3702.
680-1050.
Right. So, guys, if there's anything that you missed, any other questions that you had in regards to the 100-year celebration, how you can get involved or how you can even contribute towards the further development of the church, if you want to participate in the song competition and all of
It's not a competition, it's
Just
just
a
fellowship.
yes.
right.
Coming
So,
together to
fellowship.
sing these Methodist hymns
Yeah.
that
Right.
has helped to strengthen our people through the years. you know.
Right. Excellent. If you
Yeah.
are interested in participating in that, guys, it's open to you. So call the number, reach out to them, and don't be afraid to take that trek up to Charlottesville and have some fun. Do something different. Take the family with you guys. And so that is how we end off this morning's session right here on Good Morning Tobago. Again, we are thankful for all the persons who came on this morning and spoke with us. We had Dr. Vanas James who came and we spoke about those comments that the Prime Minister made in regards to transforming or basically scrapping the Service Commission and opting for something a bit different, more of a tribunal. And then we spoke about what's happening there at the Studley Park Enterprise with a new appointment by my former minority leader, Ashwood Jack. And then I had the privilege of sitting with Dr. Shane Mohammed as we spoke about the appointment of those new senior councils. And we rounded up with just coming to see what the Lord have done over the 100 years of Methodist celebration in Charlottesville. And so, guys, we thank you so much for coming on with us this morning. Thank you for making the trek down from Charlottesville to be here. We really appreciate you. And we thank you for all that you have done and continue to do to contribute to the development of Charlottesville. And so, guys, we thank you. Have a great day. Have a great morning. And, guys, I will see you again on Thursday.
1,000 people strong.